Good afternoon, everyone. The hour is 3:04, coming up on 3:05. Welcome to this special call meeting of the Danville City Commission. This is actually it's not a meeting, it's a budget workshop session. And we will probably be here, and we like him. We have quite a bit to go over. Mr. Terry has indicated that she will be late, nevertheless, we do have forum. So, with that, one will be the commission discussion of the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget. This discussion shall be led by our city manager, David Miller.
Okay, I'm going to make my comments brief. Oh, we're supposed to laugh at that.
Now, we're very quiet.
Am I going to live stream? Okay, apparently we're dead, so. Let's see.
Okay, so do we have to have a take two?
Yeah, we're required to have.
No.
Now you can laugh. What's your name?
One of her names is going to be. She doesn't.
So let's try this again and see if technology will stick with us this time. The hour is 3:09. Welcome to this budget work session of the Danville City Commission. Today is Monday, June the 1st. Commissioner Terry will be joining us a bit later if she has a scheduling conflict, but we still have 4 in attendance making quorum. Then we will get into item 1, which is the commission discussion of the fiscal year 2021 proposed budget. I will turn the discussion over to our city manager, Mr. David Miller. David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief with my comments.
Now we can laugh.
Okay, before you, you have a number of documents, things that, questions that came up in the last work session that we have distributed to you so that we could get answers to everybody. We have received back from each of the members of the commission your potential, your agency funding request levels. We have compiled those. We went back and double checked all of our numbers. And so from a budget standpoint, those numbers are in play. Now, I also had sent over the weekend some information that I received on Friday, and I will give you a caveat on this. I have a follow-up webinar on Tuesday, and I believe another one on Wednesday, so that there's no misunderstanding amongst local governments in the state as to what we can submit and cannot submit. But as I had mentioned last week, under the CARES Act, there was a pile of money allocated to every state. The state of Kentucky got roughly 300 million. And then that was set aside from their larger pile that could then go to local governments. I believe the counties and the cities were treated the same way, but I do not know that. What I know is that I have transparency into what all other cities got in the state. It was all based on population. So our figure was roughly 1.2 million. Again, I don't know if the counties were based on the county populations, their unincorporated populations. I'm not sure what their figures are. So if anyone here knows that, feel free to chime in. But I haven't been able to find anything yet. What I have discern from the counties is each county got a letter with their figure in. In the conversation on Friday, it was made clear that the definition for COVID-19 related reimbursements are a little more expanded than what we traditionally have through FEMA. FEMA states that they have to be very well documented and very, very specific. FEMA doesn't reimburse, for instance, nonprofit organizations, but they will do businesses that were providing services, things of that nature. So under the new guidance, they're telling us that using our 1.2 million can go to reimbursing medical expenses, public health expenses, payroll expenses, meaning for the local government. But there's a caveat that entered the discussion, which you saw a bunch of jaws drop and eyebrows raised. But they said that we can utilize this money for economic support expenses, where we can give grants to small businesses, we can offer payroll support programs, and we can offer unemployment insurance if not otherwise reimbursed. Now, there's always caveats. I'll get to that in a minute. There's also, from that, is compliance expenses, meaning everything that we've been going through to get City Hall ready to open for compliance. This is the area where they listed what's not eligible. Not eligible are payroll or benefit expenses for employees whose work duties are not substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency. For instance, like someone working in the public garage, we couldn't put anything towards that. Workforce bonuses other than hazard pay or overtime. For instance, some local governments have actually incentivized their employees and said thank you for their hard work, and they've given them a hazard additional payment, if you will, over and above because they continue to work. Whereas non-hazard employees were permitted, for instance, to go home. Our local government kept everybody working, but again, it's really a policy decision. Expenses that have been or will be reimbursed under any federal program, such as the reimbursement by the federal government pursuant to the CARES Act of contributions by states to state unemployment funds. That's a lot of gobbledygook to say that under the declaration, all area agencies that qualified and were eligible were asked if they were providing direct support to fill out documentation. We flowed it through the county emergency management director, and then that was transmitted to FEMA. And so our window will allow us and all of these other potential agencies. For instance, the mayor is well aware that one agency that had contacted us, we had encouraged them to coordinate through Bluegrass. They provided some transportation, hired their employees out with the expectation that it would get reimbursed. Well, that's that pot of money coming from the state and local to do so, and also some of the FEMA money. So those are still eligible, but you can't double dip. That's really what they're saying, and that makes sense. Damages covered insurance, getting in the double dip parties. Reimbursements to donors for donated items. So if anyone actually donated anything, can't reimburse that. Severance pay, legal settlements specifically exempted. And so tomorrow, I will get what I believe is a lot more clarity in this process, because the way I'm understanding the regs and what has been provided is that I know Commissioner Cottle had asked on this early on, is there some type of grant program we could? And I'm like, well, yes, but given our current financial situation is bleeding red. But now the pendulum's shifted where my recommendation in the communication was if we took 10% of that and sort of made a challenge to the fiscal court to match that 10%, then collaboratively, because all of the small businesses in the city are also county taxpayers, that you would basically potentially have about $250,000 based on a program that's set up and approved by the commission to facilitate these small grants. And there would be very, very specific criteria. For instance, we all know that a lot of these had to go out by PPE, they've had to retrofit their businesses. There's a lot of things that would qualify under them that normally would never be reimbursed. So that is that. And then the question then is, and that's the big question that I have, because there's some conflicting language in what I provided regarding nonprofit agencies. And so once I have a little bit better clarification tomorrow, it will give me a little more insight if any of these agencies would qualify. For instance, I'll just throw one out, the Heart of Danville. They have been aggressively from day one working through EDP, helping the local businesses consulting, as has the chamber, as has the CBB. The Heart of Danville is a nonprofit. So the question is, will they qualify as a potential reimbursement of those services if they can quantify them? And that's a question that I'm going to have, because obviously on their agency requests, as you go down, there are some that provide transportation, food support, housing, things of that nature, that in the definitions appear to qualify. We just want to make sure that when they look at sort of the reimbursements, initially they talk about small business, but never come right out and say anything about nonprofits, but it's buried in some of the other regs. And so that's why I want that clarification during the call tomorrow. But what I do know is those small grants are available to the small business. There's no question about that. And so that's for discussion of the commission. Obviously, you can't take any action, but you can certainly give guidance to staff and continue to work through that. And so that is sort of the two-tiered approach. The agency funding answers will have to come at a later time, most likely in your Monday meeting. I'll have more qualified information on there. But there's no question that the small business grant opportunity is available and could be developed.
I can't urge enough that if whenever, since people are going to be listening to this, you'll probably get a lot of questions in the next week or so, that you let people know if you all are going to decide to do this way, that they keep all the receipts, that they won't be able to go by, we won't be able to go by, just for the check, it'll have to be an actual receipt for the items, is what we'll have to have.
I should also mention, folks know that this money's out there. For instance, I've already been contacted by one nonprofit quasi advocacy group that says you should give this money to these landlords because they've lost all this money from their tenants. Yeah, but you're not a business. But they see that as COVID relief. We allow them, I will tell you, well, right now we're a huge COVID relief. I think if our cutoff list usually runs about 110, 120 right now, over 700 if we were to actually, but we can't take action. I mean, that's why those deliverables, those receivables are just growing exponentially. So just know that cash register, it's like the population clock for the country's population, or no, the debt, that's really what I mean. That one that's going, yeah. So one of the things that Commissioner Terry asked for was, give me some perspective into these numbers, like what is on a monthly basis is our spend. So that's one of the sheets there so that you can see clearly what our monthly spend is and what the categories are. So really, this one, your discussion, back to you, Mr. Mayor, is the discussion amongst you all on your agency funding. And then for the benefit of Commissioner Terry, there was one change. There was a flip on one of the mayor's. Brass Band Festival should be 20,000, and the Heart of Danville on his should be 0. They both had 20, so when he scratched one out, flipped it, it was just, you hit the wrong one back. So that was the only change on that.
So if I said to you, I mean, right now you presented us with a balance budget.
You have a balanced budget, yes, sir. So right now, everything not in the budget would take fund balance, it'd be a transfer. The reality is that we're most likely going to have to probably look at things almost on a monthly basis. As I said at the last meeting, we have really put the brakes on just about everything unless it is a necessity. Because again, we don't know how long-term this is. I can't tell you with any certainty, when is the governor, for instance, going to say, okay, you can return cutting folks off for water? Well, the reality is and this is the reality. Let's say that he says today, you can start this on Monday. Well, that doesn't mean we're going to go out and turn off 700 people. What it means is that we're going to have to freeze their debt and work out a concurrent program for them to pay that off a certain amount of time, and then have new folks. But again, those are policy decisions. My job is to work with staff to present to you a plan, and then you all decide. But that's the reality is that we went into this in March. We got to April, May. We're just now starting. So in 60 days, we've gone from usually about 100, 110 to just over 700 on that list. And that read, so that's why we're going to have to really be in concert on this budget moving forward. Same thing as I said with the goals, because we are living paycheck to paycheck, if you will, right now.
And even those that pay, it could be up to a year before we actually use all that payment in full, if we ever even get it.
Yes, what we have to do probably is set up like payment plan options for people that they keep their current bills up to date, and then we can set payment plan options if they owe quite a bit of money. Those payment plans may have to be spread over, 6 months to a year basis, because they still have to keep current with their other bills.
Do we charge interest on that?
Only on the first month, we do the 10% interest, but we're not doing that right now. That's during this COVID-19, we stopped doing interest also, so we're not getting.
And so we won't apply the interest moving forward either.
That'll be up to you. That's a policy decision. That's not an administrative decision. Administratively, up to this point, this is what we have been doing. When we get to the point where we can say, okay, we now can start the cutoff. And we've had internal discussion and certainly have potentially modeled some of the policy, but we then have to sit down and say, okay, how are we going to do this? How do you want to do this? We can start this conversation at any time, and then we have to proactively run reports and send letters to folks informing them that you have accrued this amount of debt, and this is what you know, your payment plan's going to be. The flip side is we you know, the 1.2 million, you know, we during COVID-19 can assign a lot of that we were told not to shut it off, so it's supposed to wash their hands, you know, so there's lots of ways to skin this cat when you look at going after the 1.2 million, if you will. But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at your monthly burn, 1.2 million is not much money. It gives you an opportunity to help. Government is used to floating, you know, the federal government loans. It's funny that when they loan us money, they loan interest, but, you know, FEMA, you know, they're floating us a loan because, you know, we do disaster stuff, but we don't get interest on that, and we just have to wait. We're hoping that, you know, expeditiously when we file, we've got a meeting later this week on 1.2 million, because we have aggressively been working with staff from day one to document, so that we can make sure that our ducks in a row with our paperwork when we file it.
So do we still have the line of credit?
We have a line of credit that is only for backup uses at Farmers National Bank. This is just a sweep account, yes, if something happens to our checking account, then it will sweep in and get it. But if that has a high interest rate on it, it's only there for emergency purposes.
So at what point do we ever have to tap into that?
We haven't tapped into it for years. We tapped into it when we first got it because we didn't get a USDA grant at the time. So we needed to pay some bills. We tapped into it once for that. And that's not the other time we tapped into it.
And who makes that decision when we use that?
It's whenever we get to that point in time, the fund runs that money. It's automatically that you all have already pre-paid.
Okay.
So under you know, again,
We should never tap into it again.
Well, I know, I know we don't want to, but I guess that's another sort of safety net there. If we were to have to quote some of these grants that are coming, would we use that for that, or would we not?
No, I just let it roll. No.
it depends on, you know, the phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 all have triggers attached to them as part of the larger plan. If we got the phase 4, that's when we'll have a basic discussion on, and that could potentially be a tax anticipation note. But there's also some additional federal limited revenues that we've talked about that would have to be paid back in a certain amount of time. The difference on, say, tax anticipation note is that you're going to get X at this point, so you're going to borrow knowing. It's almost like, you know, it's like a paycheck loan, the payday loan, versus the line of credits, which tend to be very heavy. Most line of credits have to be paid off, calendar year, no different, and you renew them. You know, others can be long-term. Because you're a government, you only have specific opportunities, if you will.
This will be paid off immediately. When we used it before, we barely tapped into it. And then it gets paid back as soon as it's up today. It's for a safety net.
Using the governor's own words against them. We do not want to get to the point where the courts come in and formally mandate that we're going to raise taxes in order to balance our budget. Because that is always an option, and it has happened in other governments. We're better than that. We're a lot better off. This was actually a frank conversation I was having with my wife last night. We're in a unique situation in that we had plans in place. I mean, when we went through the latest bond issuance, the ratings, that we actually had plans in place. That was great. That also comes with a double-edged sword because, again, we talked last time about policy decisions on your enterprise funds that operate by nature in the red. And so when I served their water and things are coming from water boards and things. So it's not on y'all's shoulders, if you will. You have a lot on your shoulders because you serve a very large region, just not even the city. So for instance, think about some of these areas that you serve in this local government. You know, they're not sitting there saying, well, gosh, you know, all this red ink's showing up on the cash register. It's not, it's showing up on your cash register, on your ledger. So think about that uniqueness about Danville. When you're a regional leader, that can also be an obstacle. So right now, you've got to figure out how to balance that because you're required to balance those by law as well.
One thing that we have done in the past, and we talked about this before, is, and going back to when we've had our last bond issuance, when we talked to S&P, thinking we were in better shape, because what we were doing was, you know, internally, we were gearing up for the next small recession. And because we were gearing up for the next small recession, we're in a little bit better shape than some of these other communities surrounding us are in, because we did have the fund balance there to fall back on. And so.
We were talking about agency funding, and we'll get back to that for a second, because we don't want to get into our sweep account because budget is balanced. When I made my applications, I took the 90,000 from wayfinding, which I thought was way for bit, and that was what I used to allocate to the different agencies. Just because, you know, it's a zero-sum game. You're not gonna, unless you create some money by borrowing it or something, you're spending on one end, you're taking away from something on the other. So that was my theory. Of course, always open to discussion and always open to discuss individual amounts. But I wanted to share my theory there and get us kind of moving in that direction.
Everybody like that.
On the way back, that's a capital item, and we're taking a capital item and changing it over to a operational item, even though it's in a non-departmental item, it still affects our required thing, because it's part of that 20%. So it isn't exactly a 1-to-1 ratio on that. We have not borrowed money for that. Anything that we borrowed money for, you can take away from in capital. We did not borrow money for that. We were doing that out of the regular
Right.
items, but it's not a 1-to-1 ratio exactly. Just, it has that 20% in there too, so it's not a 1-to-1 ratio.
It'd be more like 72,000 or whatever.
Yes, yeah, it'd be more like that, it would come out to the ratio. The other thing is, you know, you talk about not dipping in, we never want to dip into that for operations, because once you start borrowing money for operations, then you're in trouble.
So we don't want to use the wayfinding sign.
No, we can't, we was talking about the 700, is that we would never intentionally want to drop do that.
Oh, we have to talk about
That would be bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Because anytime that you try to borrow money for operations, that means you're in poor shape, they'll never last.
Right, that's an absolutely last.
And the only reason we done it before is because we borrowed money coming in for capital that we needed with capital pay for. It was back in 2007.
Yeah, that was
Right.
a glitch.
It was right after I
Let
started.
me ask you a question about the balanced budget that's been put in front of us some time ago. I guess maybe 11. If I understand this correctly, it's balanced. With very little changes to staffing. It's balanced with only $50,000 being put to community services and the agencies. And so that allows you that if we do something with community agencies, for example, increase them, then that puts the budget in out of balance. You have to make some adjustments to offset, say, 100,000, 150,000, that would be whatever we say is appropriate for the community agency.
That's a great statement. We either have to cut some obviously, the fund balance is a concern for those at home, fund balance is your savings account. So yes, there's been no tweaks, no changes. I think there was one email that said, could we find additional cuts? Absolutely. I didn't offer up, so for instance, Stephen's internally wayfinding site was held there because you all had made a policy decision. So I put that there as a placeholder, but that project's not moving forward because unless this commission says, that's now priority for it, go get it done. I don't think that's really going to happen right now. But I don't want it to get lost for next year or the year after because you all have made a decision. So that is how I attempted. So the reality is that we estimated the best we could on what we thought we'd get numbers. We modeled a little bit more. So I got, for instance, every day I get a little bit more insight. And here's some insight that we did not have at the time. I have a coordinated call with a lot of the larger employers in the county every week. The hospital is our largest employer. About 30% of their staff was furloughed. They still have right now today roughly about 20%, their words, not mine, of that staff still furloughed. So we, knowing that internal, those are those confidential documents that she made me sign in blood. So we sit back and we model those because it's very critical, and so we know each day we get some more additional information, or we call the county and see where certain things are or where they're coming. That's where we keep modeling. That's why I said from the get-go, we're all going to have to sit down, maybe quarterly, maybe monthly. We don't know. All I can say is that we have to stay on it aggressively because I don't want to get to stage 2. I don't want to get to phase 3. I don't ever want to get to phase 4. That's not something that you go into and say, let's just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
As this has been presented, its impact on current staff.
Right now, I think the utility department has given up 3 and we froze all others. We told you that there was 2 that we absolutely know. One was, the garage. One was ticketing. That those. Did I miss anybody else right now?
No, there's 4 actually on one utilities, 3 in a water distribution and 1 in the water plant, and all of those are because they either retired or left. It's not.
So we're trying to use attrition first.
Yeah, using it, it's better.
So you have, by your number, that was 9 or 10 positions that you just called over. 4, 3.
No, 3, I got to call it 4 positions. There's 4 positions that have been cut out just for this year because he said we could put them on freeze because of attrition. It's nobody getting rid of anybody that already left.
Oh, that's it. I guess it all depends on how you answer the question. If this budget is balanced, and your last statement just now said, it's balanced right now, and we're not letting anybody back go. If this budget falls through,
Okay.
we're concerned about it. We know a lot of placeholders. But if we were to approve this budget tomorrow, is it a true statement that we'd be keeping our staffing at the current level, minus what might be some attrition? Is that a true statement? David, yes or no?
Yes, but we want to be transparent. It's important to be transparent. So right now, you're in fiscal year 20.
Yes.
So there are 3 budgeted positions, for instance, in water distribution that will not be here in 21 because of either they left or they are retiring. So we do not plan to replace those positions. So we're garage, has had an employee, but however, we have worked through automation so that we remotely can handle any service requests over there and don't have to physically staff that. So right now, we have that employee over in public works, where through attrition, again, we're decreasing an FTE, but we're not adding an FTE. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that we all understand that I am lowering the number of staff. We're just not cutting staff starting July 1.
If the correct answer for July 1 is
Yes.
except we know we gotta look at this thing every quarter, and it might change. I don't know what my position is right now. My position is I want to keep current staff. I know it's gonna be some attrition. I know that 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, I might have to fight that. I want to know where we are right now with this budget. It's approved, minus a little tweaking. What is there to say?
Yeah, there's no one who's losing their job in this budget. Everything right now is through attrition. If we have to move folks, for instance, I know we have 911 positions open. We are trying to make sure that if you are employed, you stay employed. I have tried my hardest, and we've worked diligently as a team to keep everyone employed, even through this when other cities did not.
But using your example of 911, if there are 2 vacancies, and it's impossible to move a current position because of training or lack of experience or whatever, and you would come and request, every time they're hiring for a new position.
Yeah, staff adds and deletions have to be approved by the commission. So yeah, correct. Yeah, you would have transparency. I just didn't want y'all to leave here thinking that, well, I remember Bob used to work hard, where to go? Well, through attrition is how we're managing what we're doing right now. For instance, I know that, I told you we're losing, 2 firefighters. They now have to come back and operate as part-time. And so, we're wrestling with all that as well.
With this budget, this may be what you want to hear, what you want to hear, this answer. With this budget, our public safety, fire, police, and communications, we have them to continue to keep them staffed. So if we lose a position, we have the money in there to retire that position in those 3 areas. Is that what you were saying?
Well, that's fine, but overall, I think the city has 125 employees today in all categories. Come July 1st, if this budget is approved, we still will have 125 current employees unless this other stuff happens,
Yeah.
employed.
Yeah.
And then I would also caution us as we talk about attrition and moving people from one job to the next job, what happens sometimes in companies, not referring necessarily to the city, people get moved to places that just don't work well for them, that will be there, it's not fit, and we have to be real careful about some of those kind of things, because it's about you accepting the recommendations from the senior staff, but they've been dealing with these folks 2 days instead of you can deal with 1 day. So we gotta be real careful about some of that stuff. Because we have some current situations now where people are sort of moving around, they didn't have much input, they got a job, but still it's not a good fit. They've been better employees since that's happened to them. So I want to caution us to be careful of that. And I know this is a budget that she presented to us that's roughly 20%, 17 point something.
That's the decrease in this year. The decrease for next year in income is more like 33%.
Okay, so but a balance rate is minus 33%. You were saying to me that we're
Well, 17 altogether, I was talking. Yes, that's what it was, people in there.
for next fiscal year, the 2021.
Except for the ones we just talked about.
But we're not letting them go.
No, we have to pick up on time, June 30th.
Sure. Right. And the college retires next week, we got this kid, I understand that's gonna change, but
Yeah.
I think the part of these you're saying, we have a really bad budget based on projections, best we can make. And the decrease in whatever the finances are, we're trying to do anything that's respectful. That's real bad in one way, but that's a positive thing.
I agree, I think it's positive.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
We're,
We can cut our spending, but we're trying to.
the level of service shouldn't be affected very much, which could be an issue if you have the label to be lost.
David, I have a question. So as I've gone through this, I'm looking at, medical and hospital, and it seems that in about every, category, whether it's, legislative or otherwise, there's quite an increase. And I'm not sure I know why, since we have this new health insurance program. Or are you just trying to build in a large buffer there in case, or?
Great question. So, it's because, when you have a partially fully insured program, you have a contract in place. And so what has been happening in the past is that you would not budget to actuals or max, if you will. You were budgeting on a month to month. So it's like, this is what hit the door, ping, that's what we're going to budget to. The problem with that is that when you got larger claims and you had to substantially make a large payout out of your fund, you were borrowing money short term and hoping to make it up. You're supposed to actually have a self-insurance pool, and those are restricted funds specific. So taking the guidance of our broker working with HR, they modeled. We know that we are now starting our census, and do the census means making sure that everyone that's on our program is eligible to be in that program. So that those numbers potentially could decrease in time. But right now we're budgeting to the proper amount. Another case in point is that when we had some additional folks on the system, if we had hit our stop loss, we had to actually come up with the money to pay up, per. And so that was $50,000 a pop, give or take. And so that is all supposed to come out of your insurance fund. Now, the reality is that once that fund gets funded, usually over a 5-year period, you can have a hot year, and it's not even going to affect your budget. You're able to keep those rates flat. So on an average year, you can have a fluctuation of a couple percentage up and down. It's never going to affect you because it balances out. So we have to get to the point where we can fund that, yes.
So if I said, give it to me in small chunks, how much in our previous fiscal year, let's extrapolate, how much would you estimate our insurance costs will be through the balance of this fiscal year? And how much is budgeted for the next fiscal year?
Our year over year was remaining flat on actual costs, Now, we never know what our expenditures are under our self-insured, that I can never tell you what it will be. So all of the negotiations and changes got us to the point, so year over year, we were relatively flat. What you're seeing now is we actually have to fund the account that we have not been funding. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. It's accounting mathematics.
Yeah. Now, the reality is, and this is one of those unfortunates, if things get really tough, what do? You start pulling back, but you play risk with insurance. But if you have something catastrophic and you have 8, triggers of your stop loss, you have to come up with that real fast. Because we have a contract, we have no choice. We get the bill, we've got to pay.
But But if you have a real good year, you have some that.
And so the goal really is, you're supposed to, in a self-insured, ultimately, the goal is to get the city to a fully insured at some point with property insurance. We're not there yet because we can't fund it. Generally, like I said, one of every 5 years is a hot year. We just went through what we think is a hot year. We're hoping that this next year won't be a hot year, but all indications were you had one horrific hot year.
So, do we need to back up a moment and address the, reimbursement, that you referenced early on, to see if we want to reach out to the fiscal court and ask them to join us in that 10%? And if so, what, do we want to put some definition to what qualifications to what that money's to be used for?
Big as the program, I mean, all the service, I mean, it's big as the program.
I think that if you're in favor of the contract, that needs to be at your next commission meeting, that we should give you some language at the next commission meeting, as that doesn't really pertain to this budget.
Okay. So we got that. So,
Yes, the guideline, that would be better, if you wish that, to put that on the next commission meeting, because if that doesn't, if it doesn't affect your budget, we can kind of stick to what's in the budget document.
And you were speaking of, doing our 10% of the 1.2 something that we might, plan.
That's up to you. We know that our current allocation should be roughly about 1.2 million based on population. The governor, we've all met for, has held in abatement at 300 million, and that we're supposed to go through and make applications. So we anticefate getting 1.2 million back. Again, my number was just, 10%. You all can decide what you want to do. When you look at small business and what's eligible, that's really determination on you all. There's no question about it that we come up with 1.2 million of eligible expenses between now and the end of the year that are COVID-19 related. The question is that we also know that we've got small businesses in our community that are hurting. They had to jump through hoops of fire just to get their businesses open. Some actually even were given a date that they could open, but weren't ready. City Hall was an example. If they had to go through what we had to go through, I get it. So it's just a way to help the small businesses on what otherwise was, you're hurting, but now you got to spend more money so you can open up to pay back that money that you weren't getting in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we all be, very supportive of it. Especially with, well, we're going out of Max County. I think we all be, I'd be very supportive of us reaching out about stuff. So they get back up on their feet, so that we're gonna get back up on our feet as well, so. It's a great proposal, we just see what it might look like. Get some advice from, a young guy from the past, don't say that, whatever, he's real quiet. Oh, he's not on the camera again.
and let's, this thing moving, let me suggest we get into the agency funding request.
Okay.
Do y'all have any particular methodology you'd like to adopt?
Well, going back to Victor Hall's idea about using some of the rate funding, if we did that eliminate that money for way funding completely in the future.
Well, I can't tell you what's coming in the future. I wish everything could be yes or no answers. I really do. In 6 months, things could be back to normal and you'll be flush with cash, reimbursing what's out.
So, the important thing is for us to decide on an amount. And toss it back to.
Figure out where it comes from.
Well, and Mr. Atkins, to go back to your statement about balanced budget,
Yes.
these numbers are zero. This balanced budget that is proposed.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We need to be, well, that's right. You're
As
right.
it goes to future years, in your 10-year pathway, you have wayfinding going there. Just a reminder, no matter what's on your capital thing,
Cameron, they've done major wayfinding projects somehow.
Yeah, they have.
It's sharp.
Which leads me to my next question, are there grants out there for that, or are we pretty much without grants for anything other than COVID-19?
Okay, and in one of the meetings I had with city county managers on the level, they said any budget that you have put together that you anticipate new grants coming in, forget the word they use. So basically, it's like pie in the sky. They said, you know, even the government who gives these grants, you know, so you have to turn to the foundation. I mean, even these churches right now, I mean, unless, when separation church and state, but I mean, listen to those sermons Sunday, it's like, you know, the traditional way of churches and people not showing up and tithing and these are people, you know, that pull together and do things in the community. These funds are drying up, you know. I know that from a budget standpoint, this is where you never really want to get. One, you hopefully never get to the point that, you know, you got to go take out a loan for operations. Two, you know, in order to cut all of that, we're sort of prayerful that, you know, we're going to recover hopefully soon at some point, just like the last, because we've had to punt even simple things. I mean, I've got folks out repairing an old lawnmower that was supposed to be surplus. It's cheaper to try to repair it and continue to get another year out of it than go buy another one. So you know, so it's things like wayfinding. It's like, yeah, it's clear, but is it going to happen? We have to continue to do everything we can to provide the basic services and keep those things. I mean, our street sweeper, you know, is a good example. It's due to be replaced. We can't go out and get a street sweeper. We know that. We're going to have to milk that along and continue whatever we can to be as operational and efficient. So, you know, the question last week, you know, was about the weed. That there is weed. That is the management team saying, this is how we're going to run the government locally and cut costs. That's what we're trying to do, is find efficient, effective ways to make our government more efficient.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to suggest that we take the agency proposal before us and go line by line or agency by agency and let who feels the need to toss out the number and we go work with them and we do whatever we want to with that number and just keep on moving till we get to the end. And then when we get to the end, if we think that grand total is still too high, we start over again, but.
We have a fight club right here.
Well,
As long as it's socially distanced,
So let me, to further that, Atkins, let me just try something. So let's look at the first one for child and dog. If I think those, and average those numbers, that would be 5,000.
I only have two numbers on our report.
That's correct. If you average those two numbers amongst the five of them, it would be $5,000.
Oh, okay. I was just averaging the two numbers, okay. All right. So the mayor's talking about $5,000 per person, right?
No. You all knocked out collectively an average of $5,000.
So you all,
That's okay, just average them all.
That's what they are. That's what I've done. Okay, so write down, if my math is correct, you can put down 5,000 there. Next line item for family services, 3,400. Next, for senior citizens is 25,000. Arts is 0. Veterans Day is 200. Brass Band Festival is 10,500. Nursing home ombudsman is 400. CCHR is 0. Sister Cities is 300. Bluegrass Community Action, 100. Pioneer School of Drama, 440.
What about Kentucky Adept?
Pardon me?
Oh, they didn't ask for anything, never mind, sorry.
That's Michelle. CASA is 500. New Hope Food Pantry would be 1,100.
On the CASA, that was the one that, did anyone else want to put anything on that line item? Is that exactly?
Yeah, we'll change that, yes. And this, since that was deleted, if anybody else wants to add that, now's the time.
Would you say for Pioneer School of Drama?
440.
What are the numbers on the CASA line? I don't have any numbers.
It originally wasn't on, but
We screwed up, there was a line missing.
What are the numbers again?
2,000 is what they asked for.
they asked for 2,000.
What's CASA?
You don't have any, but because we didn't have a line on there for you to put in.
You need to put something in there if you want to put something for CASA because it was not on our original sheet.
You said 500.
Yes, but I was, forget what I said there because I was just blowing through and not thinking through.
I just thought somebody did it.
No, so if
I'm
you,
not going to 500. I just asked questions. I didn't want to.
well, let me do this way. I'm gonna start with Commissioner Terry. Is there a particular number you want to put in there?
No, I'm good with that.
All right, how about Mr. Atkins?
No, sir.
Mr. Kamal? Okay. Mr. Sears, 1,000.
Mr. Mayor, could I go back and, I didn't change it on this, but I changed it on my rough copy. On Shepherd's House, I had 10,000, that'd be 5 there, and then 5 on senior citizens.
Come on, please.
Shepherd's House, you changed it to that?
I'm sorry, you changing yours to what now? Shepherd's House,
5, and senior citizens, 5.
that's 1,000, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that'll change senior citizens, 26,000. And then it'll change Shepherd's House to 3,000.
Well, you.
Now, go back up to CASA, that averages out to $600. Next item, New Hope Food Pantries, 1,100. Dusty Hill, 100. Central Latino, 100. Boyle Mercer Helping Hands, 500. Grace, 400. Art Amble, 70,000. Shepherd's House, 3,000, as we said. Sunrise Children's Service, 0. Out of my mind, meditation, 0. And that should be a subtotal of,
Did you get, what about second stove, food?
huh?
Oh, Second Street.
Yeah, second street.
That's been, yeah.
Okay.
Where did I see that?
Okay, they asked for 0, never mind, I'm sorry.
Michelle?
I'm sorry.
So if that is, if my math is correct, and I won't swear to that, that'll put us about, 72,640.
Let me read them off to you again and see if I have the right number, okay? I'm just gonna read the numbers down the line. 5,000, 3,400, 26,000, 0, 200, 10,500, 400, 0, 300, 100, 0.
No, just no.
Kentucky Adept, 0. They didn't ask me.
They're not all.
Oh, they're still on the line, I'm sorry. 100, drama, 440, 600, 1,100, 100, 100, 500, 400, 17,000, 3,000, 0, 0, and 0.
You got 3 zeros.
I got several signatures somewhere. I've got all of them. My total is 69,140.
You want to check your appointment, just a double check?
I just did.
Oh, okay.
Good.
All right, let's continue on. Planning and zoning is 50. And, economic development initiative would be 63,000.
And airport was 0, because that's it.
That's correct.
We've got a budget question regarding the airport.
So I'd like to go back and talk about brass bands for a minute. Because
Sure.
I've always felt like that was a little bit of a double dip. Because we offer in-kind services.
Mhm.
And I asked for the overtime amounts that requires, our employees to operate and help on the brass band weekend, and I think you all have that. I had suggested that we stick to in-kind services for brass band.
We'll take you $10,000 off, there, is what you said?
That was my suggestion. If you don't want to do that, I'm perfectly fine with that. But we give them a lot of hours and overtime hours. And this year, I think it's only gonna be 1 day, maybe.
Okay. If he takes her $10,000, that would go.
Did you say Monday?
Yes.
They moved to September for 2 days, and that,
Yeah, you're right.
So what about that today?
so that'll certainly add to the cost. Commissioner Terry, you're correct. And you, your people out there for a couple of days. That's one of those areas, though, that I mentioned before, that, we certainly look at our employees first, which we want to make sure that they have a job, or transfer from appropriately and offer another job. And as I return to normalcy, brass band is one of those things like Pioneer Playhouse, and you can go on a couple other things that's pretty vital to this community, makes what it is. And I think we need to support it best we can. It brings dollars to our economy.
And the other concern I've had about these nonprofit applications in general is I don't like that it can be used for operational costs. I think it should be used for some specific.
That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's written.
Well, according to some of the,
Oh, I
application-
agree with you, but I'm just saying that you're
Yeah.
right. That was, the intention was to be a specific problem or a specific program.
specific program, for specific project or capital expenditure, or, for example, I have no issue with giving to the food pantry. Because we know that they use that to specifically buy food, and it goes out the door to the people in need. So I just think we need to be very careful about what these funds are actually being used for, because the applications that we've seen in the past, it's just roll in to their regular operational budget. Some.
Right now, your totals are 182,140, which is 132,140 over what was in the budget that was given to you.
Again, what, I'm sorry.
Your total is 182,140. And that is 132,140 over what is in the budget currently.
So here's a suggestion. Well, before I throw out the suggestion, let me make sure that y'all are done with your numbers and moving them back and forth. Because if you're changing breast band, that may change that number. You had a couple in green. And then Rick's got one green. And keep in mind, because I think yours was, and some of Denise's were the like only, which I gave you all the figures on that as well. So, and then that has nothing to do with this budget. That is not our money to play with. So the agreement was, we just received it. So y'all can hand it back, because that was the spirit which the public gave it to you.
It'll run through a budget, but I would like to run through this next budget, the 630 budget, if we can get that done for the 630.
Meaning hand out checks back.
So the way I read this, we're use the 72,000, I'm still on the organic number, we would still be short about 60,000 at these current numbers.
So maybe I need to throw out my suggestion. Because we know we're going to, be revisiting the budget, why not make quarterly allocations? So that you go into this saying, okay, this right now, as of we know, this is the picture, the window as we see it today. And we know we're about to take it from fund balance, but it's a lot easier to palatable to say, if we're looking at quarterly adjustments to say, if we break this into four, so they can at least sort of plan for the next quarter and the next quarter, is that, because who knows what'll happen, but it's like, as things adjust, we'll have a lot more transparency. It's tougher from us budgeting, saying, okay, we've been cutting. So we find other places to cut, no question about it. We'll always find places to cut, but what expense? So it's a lot more palatable if you say, this is what you want to do, and when it comes time to passing the budget, that you make sure that the questions that come up, for instance, programs versus operational are addressed, and that we're notifying these agencies that, this is your quarterly allocation, if you will.
I have a question of clarification. I think the commission is asking, however, based on my listening to it, maybe seeking an answer to still. Does staff have a recommended dollar figure that they deem appropriate for agency allocations that is staff neutral? A dollar amount. I think you're seeing a commissioner searching for wayfinding and other commissioners looking at other places in the budget. But I think ultimately your question is, how much money is in the pot that can be allocated and be neutral from a staff standpoint, if I'm understanding you correctly?
I thought she said 50,000.
We have 50,000 in the budget for
everything.
planning and zoning, yes, already, so that's the reason I took it off of the number that was over. You could take out, wayfinding and decide to take the rest from your fund balance, and then of course, all this is predicated on that we have funds. When we have them sign the items that Stephen gives us, it says it's predicated that we have the funds at the time of request, when they can be the larger ones do them on a quarterly basis. So if something happens and everything falls out, then we can also always say we don't have the funds at that point in time to do it,
Well, and taking on from that, I'd rather wait a quarter and have everyone at zero, except for planning, zoning, and economic development. The mayor averaged is out to 63,000, so those two would be 117,000. So why can't we allocate that and get a better picture after our first quarter and revisit this? Because I don't want to promise money that we may not have. I'd rather say we don't have it and possibly have it later than to promise it now and not have it.
And if we move the wayfinding down to zero, you would have enough right now to pick up the.
Yes, well, no,
I don't think we got to get into that today. I think we have a front row amount. And it's 182, 140. If that's what five of us three or four right now. And I think we're going to send that number back to staff and let you all do the next between now and July 1st. But really, it's just the number in the budget that won't get paid out. So money will be just put up. I think the key is that we decide on whether or not we accept $182,140.
So then ultimately, your question is, if you allocate or allot that figure in the budget, what are the ramifications elsewhere?
we could take it back and bring something back in that.
It's not going to pay something out of the budget.
And my question would
I think they want to know where that's going to be though, before they allocate the funds.
I don't know fly by line item 3 times, just to get us, I mean, this has been a very tenuous,
They're not the
process.
problem. They're not the problem.
I mean, we don't find somewhere to that. I mean,
Which is why we should promise it really hard.
I just try to find a compromise.
My question is, so if we were to allocate $182,140, that essentially comes out of our savings.
If you all want it to come out from now, just, you can say you want it to come out from now.
And what would that do to our fund balance?
And you want all that amount of
What's in there? What would that make it?
You're roughly in the $5 million range right now. So,
And so but that fund balance is a mandatory percentage.
No, we don't do that, means
we could go down to 0 on that. But there's triggers that are gonna float with that. You have to keep providing services, so, you know, that is what's left over after everything else that's restricted and, so you see your burn rate, so as long as funds are coming in, you know, we know we're owed a lot of money right now. Just taxes, utilities, everything, grant funds, you know, the 1.2 that they said, you know, FEMA, I mean, all of this is, you know, it's all about cash flow, just maintaining cash flow.
But the cash flow for the current budget that we're in right now, what you proposed to us was a break-even budget, but worst case scenario coming in cash flow.
Yeah, so we took your current fiscal year 20 budget and cut that, yes. And then we model from there and then cut even further to get you. And so that's why I said we spent weeks at this, line by line item within these staffs and these departments to get you where you are right now. They had to pony up a lot of cuts and kicking things down the can to get us through. That's what you do, to get us through, hopefully what'll be a 1-year horrific slump. And like I said, that's why I said last time is, as long as you don't have a recurrence, you don't have a catastrophic, issue.
I just don't feel comfortable promising this money when things are so uncertain.
I agree with that. I do not think you should promise money that may not get paid out because they do rebates on that and you're dealing with, you know, like you said, they don't use it for special products, they use it for operations, a lot of them. So
If you look at their budgets, most of the time, our money is in their operational budgets.
I can't say that to be true, but I almost don't do it.
I'd like to offer another idea, like your idea, but there's also, like, when I looked through this earlier today, there were some people, including myself, that didn't want to fund some of these agencies. We just, you know, I kind of rank them on what I thought was important. And so, not to disenfranchise people by doing averages that didn't want to fund an agency at all, I kind of went through, you know, 2 out of 5 wanted to fund this one. If we were doing a vote, that one loses. So when I look at that, there's really only 3 agencies that would win a vote. And then I went to an average, and now it comes down to about $45,000 that we're comparing ourselves to.
So which one would that be?
Well, you got family services at 4 out of 5.
And how much would that be? Still
4,250 if you average what everybody.
4,250?
Mhm. And then if you come down to brass band, 4 out of 5 of us wanted to support them at an average of 13,125.
I think the senior citizens didn't agree.
Yeah, senior citizens have,
13,125.
For brass band?
Brass band. Yeah. And the third one is, third winner would be Heart of Danville. 3 out of 5 of us wanted to support that for an average of $28,333.
What about, they said, what about senior citizens? They said, senior citizens.
Senior citizens, you're right, I missed that one. 305 there, I didn't do the math, sorry.
It's
I'll let you do
what
it.
about that? It's 30, 90.
So that's kind of what I was going to go, was whichever one's got the most votes to fund, we should average those. I thought that's what the mayor was gonna do, but he averages across 5 on everyone, which is fine. But some of them.
So what number do you want to do for senior citizens? Senior citizens.
They're probably
Yeah, well, they think something, I guess.
It's 140,000, because I put that, had 5 or didn't go in there.
And so I'm taking that amount divided by,
However many people.
About 4.
yeah. And so Kevin came in and actually made that 4 out of 5, I think.
All right.
Yeah, so that's my bad too, because I'm working on what I did earlier.
You say number 5,000?
I got 35,000 for that one.
That brings your total up for that top part even higher than what you were before.
No, it would just be those.
Without due respect, without due respect,
What does that make?
You see, you
I
said,
think, I think,
what's the senior citizen?
80,708.
But that's better than 182.
No, that's not counting economic development.
Plus the,
If you still want to do economic development and others, it's even more.
Well, let me say, Michelle, maybe I'm doing this incorrectly as a count. What I did is if it was 4 out of 5, I actually took the total divided by 4, and maybe it's more correct to divide by
It
5.
would have been more correct to use the mayor's numbers.
Yep.
And so if I did that and use the mayor's numbers, let's see what it comes out to be.
yeah, because some of these didn't get any vote to fund it all.
That brings it down to 56.9, so that makes it still, and you have 113 if you leave economic development, planning and zoning at 50, and economic development at 63. 169.9, yes. That brings it down a little bit.
Just another look at it, but I think I was looking at fairness too, you know, if you've got 2 out of 5 of us that want to support a certain group, and that seems like the vote is
That's what
the
we're
mayor.
asking.
So that'd be 119 now if we didn't. Already have allocated because of the 50.
Right, exactly. Getting closer to the numbers we were looking at before.
Buying a car.
We almost there.
so you want to go over where you think we are? Yeah.
Well, as of right now, you gave us 2 different scenarios to work with. I think we all want to decide what 2 scenarios you want us to work with, and then we'll bring you another budget back.
And describe those 2 scenarios so we all understand what they are.
The first scenario was where we done the average of 5 over all of them, and it was a total of 182,140. The second scenario is only the ones that got at least 3 out of 5, and we got average over 5, and that brings it to 169.9.
I've seen no, without due respect, I've seen no fairness. If somebody feels it's worth, it's, in their opinion, they're trying to cut costs, I think that has to be factored in, that's the process we're in. We got 5 of us up here, we got 5 different numbers.
What was the number for senior citizens under the rich?
I changed them all to the average of 5 to 26 because we didn't know the way, we never were going to sit it down. So, changed them all to 26. I mean, we could go one by one again, it's up to what you all want to do. It's up to you all.
We're sitting here over a difference of $20,000.
Right now, yeah, less than 20. When it comes to that. If you want us to go back and try to.
So what is the total allocation for the general fund non-departmental allocation, or what's the allotment that's provided for this?
There was an allocation that was put in the budget, non-departmental.
Well, I'm curious what that is, and so I think if the commission knew what that number was and the change in what those two figures do to it, I think that gives them insight into.
There was 50,000.
It was only 50,000, which is planning and zoning. So, all right, let me, since you have, Plan A, Plan B, so I'll offer Plan D.
Plan D?
For David. So, all right. Make it fair. Because I'm hearing equity. If you would come up with a dollar figure that you could agree on, let's say, let me just throw out a number, let's say 100,000. Then we assign 20,000 to each commissioner and let them decide where to put it. And be done with it. And if you decide that you don't want to put any money anywhere, well, then you have something. Or you want to put it all in one marker. I mean, you know, as long as you're following the commission adopted guidelines for how you want to fund agencies, you know, my thought process is that, you know, you have a budget and, you know, a budget is a fluid document. You try to get it as close to reality as you can, but we know it's going to change at some point. And so if you make quarterly allocations, then you're not promising a whole year, and you could even change it up. I mean, to me, if whatever the figure was, and you came in and said, these are my allocations, we're going to write checks based on that, as long as they follow all the guidelines. So that's scenario D, or Plan D.
Looking out for scenario E.
No, you gotta do C. That's all I got.
I think
For council.
Yeah, there you go. Good man.
it seems somewhat, tail wagging the dog for this commission to establish a dollar amount. It seems to me that in the most traditional format, staff should disseminate a figure that you feel comfortable will be in an operable, balanced budget scenario, pending all the craziness and expectations that we'll be receiving in the next fiscal year. And then upon that recommendation, allocations are then derived by the commission. To me, it seems completely out of place for the commission to say we want to even budget $120,000 or $20,000 a piece, or how many they come to that number, because it truly seems like an exercise in futility.
Isn't that the same as Plan D?
And we were given that number, it was $50,000 last year. In planning and zoning, which is why I think we should wait at least a quarter and come back and revisit that so that we know where we are before we can give anyone else anything.
What do you got to bring it down?
But I would like to make, EDP and planning and zoning, I'd like to include both of those allocations for this, immediately for this quarter. Everyone else is zero until further notice. That's my suggestion.
So you would want to take away finding out that when you did that.
No, I don't want to touch wayfinding. I don't think we should touch wayfinding. I think we may, if we could use that for something else in the future, we may need that. I don't want to touch wayfinding.
Now, what was Plan A?
That's the mayor.
That's the one we got 182.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm a motion that we use the $182,140, which contains donations to about 10 agencies that I have as zero. That we use that as our amount for our draft budget, and give that staff come back with.
Well, I don't think staff needs to come back with that.
It's about one, the 182,140 would come from. We just set it out and swap our ways, well, like it's in the ages, they're ready, make it balance.
Already balanced.
But it's just balance with 50,000.
Already balanced.
Commissioner Terry said $50,000 is the budget. Now, if you think there's a little bit more, maybe we can take it off, because you also brought up, Commissioner Terry, that EDP should be included, but that wasn't, so.
And maybe, you know, I mean, we could give them 50 and planning zone 50, but those are, to me, the airport, planning zoning and economic development, those are completely separate from the rest of these nonprofits. Just because those are joint special purpose government entities, they're joint entities with the county. The airport has said they're fine. The recommendation from staff was $50,000 for planning and zoning, and possibly, what was 70 or something from DDP. I think we need to fund planning and zoning and economic development. We can even do 50 each. And the rest are just gonna have to wait and see.
Might we can get a second?
No, there's a second for Commissioner Atkins.
I'll second for discussion.
Commissioner Collins, we are in discussion.
I understand what Commissioner Terry's saying, and it does make sense, but I think personally, we might be able to get.
Just so you know, this is just from you all, on what you tell us, so you know, that can try to do, this is not for official budget. We have to take action in this meeting for official budget.
Okay. Well, my point was gonna be that I don't think quarter is gonna do this, to be honest with you. I don't think we'll know in a quarter exactly where we stand. So if we waited till we knew, we could maybe hotel them in before we could actually allocate.
You decide how you spend your Christmas money in January, when you don't know what kind of year you're gonna have, or what kind of money.
Exactly, thank you. We are promising money that we don't know we are even going to have.
Well, we don't really allocate.
No, we don't always do that.
What was your figure again, James?
It's the 182 something that we went through.
It's the 182, 140 that the first one that the mayor.
It's an additional $132,000.
And I just, a lot of things, can I make this a little, just a wee bit easier? If we say as a commitment, in addition to the 50,000 for planning and zoning, that we're going to commit to the economic development partnership.
How much?
Well, we averaged out 63, pick your number at this stage, it's up to you all.
The county allocated 72,000. Just,
And I'm good with that.
Didn't give them 70?
Yeah. And then, maybe if staff then wants to consider, beyond that, if there's some sum of money you think, could be recommended for the commission to consider, then let's, maybe we do that. And I'm not making that a motion.
I say we have to vote on James's.
Well, I'm coming about the draft budget, it was just at $50,000.
I took it two ways. I'm to be totally wrong. Number one, it was worst case scenario. And number two was a message from staff, including David, that they didn't know enough about these agencies to give us a suggestion.
And that's a fair statement. I mean, I can't, you know, we did the budget, and we're cutting. That's why when I said to my budget statement, I was gonna hold that in abatement because we hadn't had any discussion. I don't know the community. I don't know what these agencies do. I had contact maybe with two, maybe three of them on the top side. I honestly don't know. But again, I had to make sure that when we cut, that I was taking care of all basic services with what I anticipated would come in the door, dollar amount wise. And so when we kept cutting, and then it got to the discussion of these, that's exactly why we left them at zero and left them at abatement, because we knew we'd have to go back and tell staff, okay, we got to go through another round. We've got to find other ways to cut where are you? Where are you? Where are you? What are you thinking? I was out my keys off you, because we were coming back, staff knows us, coming back and said, well, we probably ought to take a hard look at this or that. You know, I knew that when we talked last week, I knew EDP has to be funded at a minimum of 25,000 contractually, you lose the votes. You know, so that factors in. You know, I'm the first to say, I know what Heart of Danville's doing in the community right now, you know, without question, but I also recognize that you got to take care of your services first and then figure out if there's anything over and above that. And I can't tell you right now that there is going to be. There may be at some point, I don't know. So to answer the counselor's question, that's exactly what we did, you know, over the course of you know, multiple weeks, is put together a budget that, you know, think about your national budget, you know, cut it up by a third and what it does. I mean, I still have the police department very, very extremely concerned about how much their overtime is cut. And so, you know, I recognize that as we move forward, we're gonna have to shift and move stuff around. I have to figure out where I come up with, you know, overtime money to cover that. You know, I'm the first to say that when I look at the response, when I sent out staff on the brass band, you know, look at that figure on the dollar. You know, that's an entry-level police officer. And you can't tell me that they staffed that whole thing with entry-level police officers. So I know that. So I know that based on staffing, cost is going to fluctuate. It doesn't include, you know, the cost of the water or vice versa. You know.
Let me put out another number to us then. We're looking at $182,140. You look at what was budgeted for fiscal year 2020 was $391,300. So it's almost a 50% reduction in what we're doing to agency funding.
Well, and I just want to say, no one is disputing that any of these people are not doing good things and that I'm not disputing that at all. And the ones that I did pick to fund are the ones that I felt like have probably had the greatest increase in need. And the brass band was that I was saying the same market development. But if we're spending, you know, nearly $10,000 in income services, then that should be a wash instead of a total of 20,000.
So
I picked one to like about 4. So if you take out my 10,000 in brass band, my allocation number was $6,500. Besides planning and zoning and economic development.
now we have a motion on the floor. And a second as well. Ms. Atkins, do you want us to vote on that motion? Would you want to rescind your motion?
Let's vote over the system. We can just balance on that.
That's what I'm trying to do, right? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye. All opposed?
Okay.
So I gotta break the time and say nay. All right? We're back in open discussion.
If you move economic development down to 50,000, like Will suggested, that brings your total down to 169,140.
Oh, no, I meant 100,000. Oh. Sorry. Everyone else is zero. Going to look like those 050 each. That was fine. Because that was
Is that a motion?
the staff recommendation. I mean, I can make it a motion if you all want.
I have a question before we go over that. It's not the hard thing, what used to be down that bottom column of the report board.
No, they used to be part of ADP, and then they started last year, we broke it back out. They were apart, and they were gathered together as part of it. Very short.
We're just having discussion. And our recommendation is Stephen Davis point. The recommendation was $50,000 total. by staff. I think we should give 50 to planning and zoning and 50 to EDP with the latency approach to everyone else. I just don't think we have any other choice.
Is that your motion?
I can make it a motion if I need to.
We're not gonna go anywhere except.
So that's my motion. That's my motion. My motion is, to take staff recommendation of 50,000 planning and zoning, and then I recommend 50,000 to economic development. And the rest, I would like to have a wait and see approach.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry, for your, motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to the motion.
Commissioner Terry will accept.
Well, yeah, okay. And that was to add to that motion, 25,000 for the annual, 25,000 for the senior citizens.
Back up to $200,000.
The average for the private animal was 17,000.
Yeah, I know. I'm not looking at averages, I'm looking at.
Commissioner Terry, I believe you have the right to accept that amendment or reject that amendment.
I don't want to accept that.
That could be an additional motion after the one that's voted on.
Yes.
Is approved. And again, I want to clarify my point was only that the typical manner in which this body has approached these issues in the past has been based upon a dollar figure provided by staff and the allocated what's given to you. So I'm not advocating for any group or anything of that nature, simply that through the normal course of dealing, staff proposes a figure and take that figure and make allocations to the fund.
Once again, I agree with you, and JH, I appreciate you thinking about it, Daniel, because I did have a dollar figure there for them, but it does seem that we have to listen to staff. I mean, what money do we have? My Christmas present now is a scenario we play for without knowing how much money I have.
Do we have a second on? Do we have a second?
Is there a second? Yes.
Yeah, seconded.
Making sure.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chair will call the question. Just to be clear, would you mind restating your motion?
This is for, the staff recommendation of 50,000 to, planning and zoning, and, my number that I, allocated for economic development, I suggested $50,000.
Everybody clear on that? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Opposed, like sign?
Aye.
Aye. Well, that was big. Y'all exercising me.
I want to make a motion that we direct staff to look at the numbers that we have given them and come back with a recommended potential amount that we can allocate for next year for the agencies, and to show us where that's coming from, so we'll know if that's something we want to pursue.
Also known as Plan D.
Okay, we'll call it that. Plan K,
Plain tag.
special K.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
So let me ask this, Commissioner Collins, thanks for your motion. Thanks for yours as well. I think, unless I missed it, we've already been told, that whatever we do over and above a certain number is gonna come out of a $5 million fund balance.
I don't necessarily think that's true. I mean, that may be the case. But
Is that what you said, Michelle?
I said it could.
well,
That's one option.
there are,
Or we could cut it from somewhere else. So we could-
oh, yeah, I mean, it's not free money. There's no way.
That's the two options, we take it from somewhere else, or we take it out of that.
Which Kevin brought up earlier, we hate to say it, but really it's not a top priority coming off the pandemic. That's wayfinding. There's money sitting there. And we're probably not gonna move on for a while.
And, you know, I don't know. I don't have the answer. I may be totally wrong. Just, if it's possible, I would like to see what your ideas would be, but I also would like to know where it's coming from. So I know, you know, who we are shorting or who we are, what areas we're taking money from.
That can be done. I'm gonna suggest that you all have 11 minutes left in this meeting, because they did put a time limit on the paper.
The chair gonna call a question on the motion.
This is really almost like, he really.
So, well, let me just clarify. So staff already did that, but you want a different number?
Yes, I don't think staff, well, David himself said he didn't know these agencies, so he didn't know exactly what to put on several of them, so. I don't know, I've been here long enough to know that it always seems like you could slice something somewhere, and that may not be the case this year. I could be totally wrong. It's just something I would like for staff to pursue.
Well, I would just like to say, what I said the other day was, these are they're doing important work. But if I have to choose between these agencies and our employees, I'm gonna choose our employees.
Nothing wrong with that, wrong.
I think we're all
So
for that.
that's kind of what I'm doing now.
That's why I asked the question about the balanced budget and about staffing, because right now we are okay with staffing. If $182,000 causes us to lose 5 or 6 staff members, then it's no brainer for me.
Right. Yeah, that's why I want to know where it's going.
So we have a motion, and the motion is to have staff come back with a number and a recommendation as to where that number is going to come from. Said differently, but.
Yeah, you definitely better. What he said.
So, I'll call the question, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
We will call that plan call.
This also seems like it's a time to remind you that the budget process is one in which staff recommends it and you approve it in totality and don't have line item authority. Therefore, based upon what staff proposes to you, you will ultimately give an up or down vote. Your agency allocations, therefore, are in essence legally suggestions for the city manager to incorporate in the budget that will be proposed to you. And that it's his responsibility to present a balanced budget based upon your agency allocation recommendations. So it can't be seen as instructions, but recommendations legally. And then it would be incumbent upon your city manager and staff to propose the balanced budget where they fit. And then if you don't like them, you have the choice of either rejecting the budget in totality or accepting it in totality, but not making line item revisions when it's presented.
Absolutely, because when you vote on the budget, you're voting on allocations, allocated numbers, and the total, not this line item budget, this is a working document, not the actual what you're voting on. And since that's being said, we only have a few minutes, you have to have 2 readings of your ordinances, and since you only have 2 regular meetings left, and we still have it, if you all want us to present something Monday night, or you all, and ready for you all to vote on, or you all want to have a work session. Because you have to have 2 readings of it, so we'll have to, it has to be on 2 different times.
Right, but I think we usually have a special call meeting.
Last year we did, so the year before we didn't.
Well, we need to have, the city as, we need to have.
So that's what I'm saying, we need to probably plan one right now, if we're all going to do.
We do a meeting before the meeting, like we have sometimes,
Oh, like everyone.
something like that.
Oh, Monday.
Yeah, meetings, as long as they're advertised, we can have meetings.
I did,
So you're
we have the
requesting-
right schedule.
Yeah, for like Monday. Yeah, a week cycle. Last week was anomaly because we had a compressed holiday schedule. We're still operating on limited support staff because of the daycare situation. And then, I had that doggy emergency, so that's why I worked so late Thursday night. So things didn't go off as smoothly as we thought they would. But, a week cycle is usually, adequate.
So do we want to do 3 o'clock again? Give us plenty of time on Monday? That would just be another budget workshop.
That workshop, and then, we could go ahead and fix the budget on there, don't put on at 5:90. And if something happens and it's not in the agreement, then we can always take it off.
Yeah, I don't,
We can put it on and then take it off.
I have anticipated several budget issues until June 30th. I don't think we're going to do anything, we'll have a total budget on the day, we can put it on there, I guess, but I don't know that I'm ready.
We're gonna do another work session on the 8th.
Yeah, 3 o'clock Monday, the 8th, prior to the other.
Is there anything else you all want us to work on? Because all I'm doing is about agency allocation.
I had a question, well, I'll get to it, I'll do it the next meeting.
Yeah, you got time, don't
You got 5 minutes? Yes.
you? You got 5 minutes.
My question related to, you mentioned that there's gonna be some attrition in the wastewater treatment.
No, in the water treatment plant, we had one resign, and so we already gave up the position because we knew it was gonna happen ahead of time. And then there is the retirements that happened in the water distribution.
Okay.
So if you look at your original budget transmittal letter, I called those out deliberately because when you look at your FDA counts, like, what happened to those? That department voluntarily said, I'm cutting those to help balance my budget.
What will that do to overtime?
Well, that's where they came back to the cut electricity, and so we engaged and said, no, we're not cutting electricity. We started looking at a whole lot of other things.
Yes.
I mean, in retrospect, we're bleeding in that area, and the conversation we're having, we've got to figure out how to shore up that ship.
I know you're up against it, in some areas, you're probably have to have, what, a class 4 or something?
Compliancy and all of that, so it's all critical. We're trying to, reel in, some of the energy efficiency problems, that we're supposed to solve problems, but we're not there yet. There's a lot of things going on in that area. Staff has helped a lot. I mean, it's not to say that they're the happiest. I know the police department, realizes they had to give up new cars in that cycle because they were on a cycle. Can't do it, had to cut the overtime. When I tell you we've cut a third of this budget out, it's not sustainable. It's to hopefully get us through, otherwise we're gonna have big sales at our meetings. And, we'll do what we have to do to provide services. I know it sounds like a joke, but, it's serious stuff. It is serious stuff.
And before she timed this out, at our last meeting, you went through a long litany of names.
Phase 2, phase 3, et cetera, based on fund out, yes, sir.
Is there a time when we are gonna be allowed to see that?
We were going to have that executive session during the meeting that was canceled for tonight, so, we're apparently doing that on Monday.
Anything else? I'm gonna say, thanks to my fellow commissioners, because, I can't even think this was gonna be a real tough, discussion, and it was that, but, you seem to always be able to conduct yourself like young men and young women, and that's always pleasing, and always nice. That doesn't include you.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
I mean,